Hey everyone, Chris here. Welcome to my feat tier ranking series. So I'm doing a fairly rigorous system in ranking all the feats in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Ranked all the ones in the player's handbook, that was 42, and then another 15 from Xanathar's, and today we're going to be doing another 15 from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And if you want to know how these ranks are determined, watch the preview video, which I'm going to link up above for you. But for those who have been watching the series, I'm sure you're anxious to get started. So let's jump right in with Artificer Initiate. And technically, there are 4 things here. So first off, we're going to learn one cantrip of our choice from the Artificer's spell list. That's worth 8 points. Second, we're going to get a first level spell from the Artificer's spell list. Cast it once for free, and then we can use spell slots for it. And that's worth 20 points. And then we're going to get a tool proficiency, which is worth 1 point. And then we're going to be able to use it as a spellcasting focus. That's a little bit better. Still technically a ribbon for 6 points. Add those all together, 35 points. And that lands it in D tier, and it is tied with Heavily Armored. Next feat is Chef. I mean, definitely one of the weaker feats in Tasha's, but we get a Constitution or Wisdom increase, so that's worth 22 points. Then we're going to get proficiency in Cook's Utensils. That's 1 point. And then probably the best trait on Chef, other than the ability score increase, as part of a short rest, you can cook a special food, provided you have ingredients and cook utensils on hand. You can prepare enough of this food for a number of creatures equal to 4 plus your proficiency bonus. At the end of the short rest, any creature who eats the food and spends 1 or more hit dice to regain hit points gains an extra D8 hit points. So it's kind of like a Bard's Song of Rest, which is a so-so feature, but anyway, is worth 8 points here. And then with 1 hour of work, when you finish a long rest, you can cook a number of treats equal to your proficiency bonus. These special treats last 8 hours after being made. Creature can use a bonus action to eat one of those treats to gain temporary hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. The issue here is that your proficiency bonus isn't very high, so that's not a lot of temporary hit points. But it's worth 5 points, I guess. So add those all together, it's 36 points. And that ties it with Bountiful Luck on the D tier. Next up, we have the Crusher feat. So Crusher is a very popular feat. Let's see why. So first, we're going to increase either our Strength or Constitution. That's worth 22 points. Second, when we hit a creature with an attack that deals bludgeoning damage once per turn, we can move it 5 feet to an unoccupied space, as long as it's no more than 1 size larger than us. That's one of the premier features of Crusher. It's worth 20 points. And then when you score a critical hit that deals bludgeoning damage to a creature, attack rolls against that creature are made with advantage until the start of our next turn. That's decent. It's worth 15 points. Add those all together, and Crusher is worth 57. And that is enough for Crusher to sneak into the very bottom side of S tier. So next up we have Eldritch Adept. Studying occult lore, you learn 1 Eldritch Invocation of your choice from the Warlock class. So there's only 1 trait here, and it's an okay trait. The one issue I have with Eldritch Adept is there's not a lot of invocations available unless you're already a Warlock, and if you're a Warlock, you do 1 extra invocation isn't really worth a feat, right? So you would primarily want it if you aren't a Warlock, in which case you have a very limited selection of what you can take. If you have 1 level in Warlock, that's kind of a niche case where you took Eldritch Blast and you would like Agonizing Blast on it or something, then Eldritch Adept might be worth a feat. But yeah, I think it's worth 25 points for that 1 trait. And that ties it with Martial Adept at F tier. Next up, we're going to have the Fey Touched feat. So 3 things here. First, we're going to get an ability score increase to Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma. That's worth 23 points. We're going to get the Misty Step spell. We can cast it again if we actually have spell slots. That's worth 18 points. And we're going to get a first level spell, and we can choose from a lot of good spells worth 18 points. Add those all together, Fey Touched is worth 59. And that's enough for S tier, and it's going to be right between Polearm Master and Resilient. And next we have Fighting Initiate. And there's 1 trait here. You're going to get a fighting style from the fighter class. Now there is a nice little bonus that we can change our selection each time we gain an ability score increase. So you might have different use for this at low level and high level. and that's fine. Though I would say archery is the best fighting style, and I'm kind of basing my points based on an archery character going for that +2 to hit from the fighting style. That's very valuable. So I'm going to give this 45 points. And that is enough for B tier. It's going to be right here between Athlete and Heavy Armor Master. Next feat is Gunner. So we're going to increase our dexterity score. No choice there, so it's worth 20 points. Then we're going to get proficiency with firearms, and that's worth 4 points. We're going to ignore the loading property of firearms. That's pretty important, worth 15 points. And if we're within 5 feet of a hostile creature, we're not going to get disadvantage on our ranged attack rolls. That's worth 15 points. Some of these points, or some of these traits are basically the same as Crossbow Expert, and they did get the same points. But total is 54 for Gunner, and that's enough for A tier, and it ties with Infernal Constitution. Our next feat is Metamagic Adept. So we're going to get 2 Metamagic options of our choice from the Sorcerer class. It surprises me that we have Eldritch Adept, and it only gives us 1 invocation, but Metamagic Adept gives us 2 Metamagic options, even though Sorcerers get less Metamagic options than Warlocks get invocations. Not sure I understand that, but I'll take it. And then we're also going to get 2 sorcery points to fuel them. That's not a lot. In fact, there's some Metamagic we can take that 2 sorcery points won't be enough for. However, Metamagic Adept is good enough that even with a Sorcerer, I might take it just to boost my Metamagic, or if I'm playing a Spellcaster that's not a Sorcerer, to be able to access at least a little bit of Metamagic. It's really just 1 trait. The sorcery points aren't an additional feature. It's like with superiority dice. On their own, they're not a feature. They fuel another feature. But overall, yeah, I'm going to give this a solid 38. And that is enough for C tier, and it's tied with a whole bunch of stuff at the lower end. And then we go on to Piercer. So we can increase strength or dexterity. That's worth 22 points. Once per turn, when we hit a creature with an attack that deals piercing damage, we can re-roll one of the attack's damage dice and must use the new roll. It's worth 18 points. And yes, that's less than I gave that trait for Savage Attacker, but I'm assuming that with Savage Attacker, you're at least picking weapons that do a lot of damage, and with Piercer, you're kind of stuck with piercing damage weapons. And when you score a critical hit that deals piercing damage to a creature, you can roll 1 additional damage die when determining the extra piercing damage the target takes. And yeah, that's okay, but it's a ribbon, so I'm giving it 4 points. Total for Piercer, 44. And that's enough for B tier. It's right behind Fighting Initiate. Next up is the Poisoner feat. So when we make a damage roll that deals poison damage, it ignores resistance to poison damage. Sounds much better than it is. Not a lot of creatures have poison resistance. They tend to either take full damage or they're immune. So this is actually kind of a ribbon. I give it 8 points. Then you can apply poison to a weapon or a piece of ammunition as a bonus action instead of an action. That's good. That's worth 15 points. Then we're going to get proficiency with the Poisoner's Kit, 1 point. And we can create a poison that's really expensive, but I gave it 10 points. Overall, the Poisoner feat gets 34 points. And that ties it on D tier with Magic Initiate and Fade Away. Next up is the Shadow Touch feat. So, ability score increase, we have 3 choices. That is worth 23. We're going to learn the Invisibility spell, and we can cast it once for free, and we can cast it with our spell slots. That's worth 17 points. And then we're going to get a first level spell. Again, we can cast it for free, and we can cast it with our spell slots. The issue is that it can only be from enchantment, illusion, or necromancy. Those aren't the spell schools I would have chosen. It's still decent, 14 points. So Shadow Touch comes in at 54 points total. And that's still enough for A tier. In fact, it's right in the middle here, tied with Infernal Constitution. Next feat is Skill Expert. So if you're considering taking the Skilled feat or the Prodigy feat, I would look at Skill Expert as an alternative. First, you're going to get to increase an ability score, and any ability score of your choice. That's worth 25 points right there. We're going to get a proficiency in 1 skill of our choice. That is worth 5. And finally, we're going to get Expertise, and that is worth 17. So our total for Skill Expert is a very respectable 47. And that is enough for B tier. put it right between Inspiring Leader and Tough. Next feat to look at is Slasher. So we're going to increase Strength or Dexterity. So a choice of 2 different ability scores. That's worth 22 points. Once per turn, when we hit a creature with an attack that deals slashing damage, we reduce the speed of the target by 10 feet. Pretty good. I'd say that's worth 15 points. And when we score a critical hit that deals slashing damage to a creature, it has disadvantage on all attack rolls until the start of our next turn. That's decent as well. Another 15 points. Add them together, Slasher gets 52. And that's enough for A tier, right between Dragon Fear and Mobile. Next feat is Telekinetic. So we're going to choose an ability score increase between Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma, worth 23 points. We are going to learn the Mage Hand cantrip, and we can cast it without verbal or somatic components, and we can make the Spectral Hand invisible. And if we already have it, its range is increased by 30 feet. So yeah, I figure that's a little bit better than just a regular cantrip, so 10 points. And then the bonus action Shove. So we can pull or push a creature within 30 feet of us as a bonus action. They make a strength saving throw, or they move 5 feet either towards or away from us. It's a good feature, 25 points. Total for Telekinetic, 58 points. And that ties it with Resilient up in S tier. And our final feat for Tasha's is Telepathic. So, 3 traits here. First, we have the ability score increase. 3 choices, that's worth 23 points. Second, we're going to get Telepathy, so that's worth 15 points. And third, we're going to get the Detect Thoughts spell, which is a good spell, and we can cast it for free, and we can use our spell slots to cast it, and that's worth 17 points, and Telepathic comes in at a total of 55 points. And that puts it in A tier, tied with Mounted Combatant. And I do think it's kind of interesting. So red is the player's handbook feats, and you can see when it was just red, there was so much on S and F, not a lot in the middle. And now that we've got Xanathars and Tasha's in there, that middle is really filling in. It's going to fill in some more as we do more of the more recent feats. And it just goes to show how much better they've gotten at balancing feats. Still not perfect. We're still getting some S and some F tier feats, but definitely an improvement over the 2014 Player's Handbook. Now, I know this series is going for a while, and it's going to go for a little while yet. If you want to see all these videos early, you can. You just have to go to the link in my video description to my Patreon. Patrons have had a chance to see all videos in this series, and I would like to thank some of them. Mr. Wonderful, Babrak, Blue Wolf, John D, Descarpus9, El Conquistadorito, Jared Huberger, John Wayne, Joseph Hall, Joseph Robideau, Wu Carl Kong, Michael Michelle, Moxie, Nemo, Paul Suzak, Prometheo NTG, Rico, Ryan Wilmot, Shane and Todd Beyond, Somni Real, Stephen Moline, Earshine, Third, and Wade. Thanks so much. And I hope everyone will check in on my next video. I'm going to rank all the feats in Dragonlance and Bigby presents Glory of the Giants. So I hope you'll join me for that. Otherwise, until next time, I am going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.